Have you ever wondered what the ancient Egyptians believed happened after you took your last breath? For thousands of years along the banks of the Nile River, people developed one of the most detailed and beautiful visions of the afterlife ever created. Today, we are going to walk together through the sacred beliefs of ancient Egypt, discovering how they imagined the soul's incredible journey from death to eternal paradise. Before we go back in time together, if you're enjoying settling in for the night with a bit of Egyptian history, consider hitting subscribe. And I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from right now? And what time is it there? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stood in complete darkness and wondered what existed before anything at all? The ancient Egyptians asked themselves this same question thousands of years ago, and their answer was both simple and amazing. They believed that before our world, before the sun, before even the gods themselves, there was only none. None was not a god exactly, but rather an endless ocean of dark, swirling water. Imagine being surrounded by water in every direction, above you, below you, with no light anywhere, no sound, nothing but the gentle movement of primordial waters that had always existed and would always exist. This was the beginning, or perhaps more accurately, this was the state before beginnings. Now, you might wonder how anything could come from this endless dark ocean. The Egyptians had a beautiful answer to this question, and it starts with a god named Atum. Picture this moment carefully, because it is the most important moment in all of creation. One day, or perhaps one moment, because time itself had not yet been invented, something stirred within the waters of none. A consciousness emerged, a thought became aware of itself, and this awareness was Atum. The name Atum actually means the complete one, or the one who is everything. And this makes perfect sense, because Atum contained within himself everything that would ever exist. But here is where the story becomes really interesting. Atum found himself completely alone in the dark waters. There was no ground to stand on, no sky above, no other being to talk to. So what did he do? The ancient texts tell us that Atum created a hill, the very first piece of solid earth rising up from the waters of chaos. This hill was called the Benben, and it became the most sacred symbol in all of Egyptian religion. Every pyramid, every obelisk, every sacred stone was meant to represent this first hill of creation. You can imagine Atum standing on this small island of earth, surrounded by infinite dark waters, about to bring the entire universe into being. The way Atum created the first other beings is described differently in different texts, but the most common version tells us that he brought forth two children from within himself. Their names were Shu and Tefnut. Shu was the god of air, of breath, of the space between things. Tefnut was the goddess of moisture, of dew, of the water that gives life. Together, these two represented the first separation in the universe, the first moment when the one became many. Before Shu and Tefnut, everything was mixed together in Atum. After them, the process of creation could continue, because now there was more than one consciousness, more than one force at work in the universe. Shu and Tefnut themselves had two children, and these children would become incredibly important to every Egyptian who ever lived. Their names were Geb and Nut. Geb was the earth, solid and strong, providing the ground beneath our feet. Nut was the sky, vast and mysterious, stretching above us like a great protective covering. The ancient Egyptians imagined Nut as a woman whose body arched over the entire world, her hands and feet touching the earth at the four corners of existence. Every evening, they believed, Nut swallowed the sun, and it travelled through her body during the night to be born again each morning from between her legs. This might sound strange to modern ears, but to the Egyptians, it was a beautiful way of explaining the daily cycle that governed all of life. But there is a problem in this early family of gods, and it is a problem that will echo throughout all of Egyptian mythology. Geb and Nut loved each other so much that they remained locked in an eternal embrace. Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, were pressed so tightly together that there was no space between them. There was no room for anything else to exist, no room for light, for plants, for animals, for people. So Shu, the god of air and space, had to separate his own children. He placed himself between Geb and Nut and pushed them apart. He lifted Nut high into the sky and held her there, creating the space in which all life could flourish. Even today, when Egyptians looked up at the sky, they imagined Shu standing there, arms raised, forever holding his daughter above the earth so that the world could exist. Geb and Nut had 4 children before they were separated, and these 4 children would become central to the most important story in Egyptian mythology. Their names were Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Osiris was born first, and he was destined to become the first king of Egypt, teaching people how to farm, how to make bread and wine, how to live in civilization rather than chaos. Isis was his sister and his wife, a goddess of magic so powerful that she eventually learned the secret name of Ra himself, gaining power over all of creation. Set was the god of chaos, of deserts, of storms and violence, and Nephthys was a gentler goddess, protective and kind, though often overshadowed by her more famous siblings. This family of 9 gods, from Atum down to Osiris and his siblings, was called the Ennead of Heliopolis. These were the gods who created the world and established the order that made life possible. But this was not the only creation story the Egyptians told. In the city of Memphis, priests taught a different version, one in which a god named Ptah was the true creator. Pa, they said, created everything through thought and speech. He imagined the world in his heart, spoke it into existence with his tongue, and everything that exists came into being through his words. This is remarkably similar to creation stories from other cultures, including the biblical account where God speaks and says, "Let there be light." The Egyptians did not see these different creation stories as contradictory. Instead, they understood that different truths could exist at the same time, that creation was so vast and mysterious that no single story could contain the whole truth. In the city of Hermopolis, they told yet another version involving 8 primordial gods called the Ogdoad, representing darkness, water, infinity, and hiddenness. These 8 gods existed in pairs, male and female, and from their interactions, the world emerged. But regardless of which creation story you heard, certain truths remained constant. The world emerged from watery chaos. The order was imposed upon chaos through the actions of the gods. And most importantly, this order was always fragile, always threatened by the possibility of returning to chaos. This meant that maintaining order, what the Egyptians called ma'at, was the most important duty of everyone, from the pharaoh down to the humblest farmer. Every ritual, every prayer, every good deed helped to maintain Ma'at and keep chaos at bay. Now let me tell you about Ma'at herself, because she is absolutely crucial to understanding the Egyptian view of the cosmos and the soul. Ma'at was both a goddess and a concept, representing truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. She was usually depicted as a woman with an ostrich feather on her head, and this feather would become incredibly important in the judgment of souls after death. Ma'at was what made life possible. She was the reason the sun rose every morning, the reason the Nile flooded at the right time each year, the reason society functioned. Without Ma'at, everything would collapse back into the chaos of none. Every person in Egypt, from the moment they were born until the moment they died, was expected to live according to Ma'at. This meant telling the truth, dealing fairly with others, not stealing, not murdering, not committing adultery, respecting the gods, honoring your parents, being kind to those weaker than yourself. It meant performing your duties according to your station in life. A pharaoh maintained Ma'at by ruling justly and performing the proper rituals. A priest maintained Ma'at by serving in the temples and making offerings to the gods. A farmer maintained Ma'at by working hard, paying his taxes, and treating his neighbours fairly. And here is the key to everything we will discuss about the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that after death, your heart would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If you had lived a good life, following the principles of Ma'at, your heart would be as light as the feather, and you would pass into paradise. If you had lived an evil life, breaking Ma'at, filling your heart with wickedness, your heart would be heavy, and you would be destroyed forever. This was not an arbitrary judgment. It was simply the natural consequence of the life you had lived. Your own deeds determined your fate. Before we move on to talk about death and the soul's journey, I want you to understand how the Egyptians viewed the universe they lived in. They did not see the world the way we do today. They saw the sky as a goddess, the earth as a god, the sun as a divine boat sailing across the heavens. The Nile River, which gave them life, was a gift from the gods. Its annual flood, a miracle that renewed the land and made farming possible. The desert that surrounded the narrow green valley of the Nile was the realm of chaos, of Set, dangerous and deadly, but also necessary as a boundary protecting civilization. The universe had three main regions in Egyptian thought. There was the world of the living, the narrow strip of fertile land along the Nile where people lived their daily lives. There was the sky above, where the sun god Ra travelled each day, and where the stars were believed to be the souls of the blessed dead. And there was the Duat, the underworld, a mysterious realm that existed somehow below the earth and also in the west, where the sun set each evening. The Duat was not exactly hell, though it contained dangers and horrors. It was more like a parallel world, the realm of the dead, where souls journeyed and where they could potentially find eternal happiness. The Egyptians believed that the world operated in cycles. The sun died each evening when it set in the west, travelled through the dangers of the underworld during the night, and was reborn each morning in the east. The Nile flooded each year, died back, then flooded again. The seasons turned in their appointed order. Osiris, the god-king, died and was resurrected, becoming the lord of the afterlife. These cycles demonstrated a fundamental truth. Death was not an ending, but a transformation, a necessary passage to a new form of existence. This belief gave the Egyptians tremendous hope and courage when facing death. The relationship between the living world and the divine world was constant and intimate. The gods were not distant beings living in some far-off heaven. They were present everywhere, involved in every aspect of existence. When the sun rose, that was Ra beginning his daily journey. When the Nile flooded, that was the tears of Isis, mourning her husband Osiris. When storms came from the desert, that was Set in his rage. When crops grew, that was Osiris blessing the land. The Egyptians lived in a world saturated with divine presence, where every natural phenomenon had spiritual significance, where the boundary between the physical and the spiritual was thin and permeable. Chapter 2. The sacred parts of the human soul. Now we come to one of the most fascinating aspects of Egyptian belief. What exactly did the Egyptians think a person was? What were you made of? Today, we might say you have a body and a soul, two parts. But the ancient Egyptians believed that each person was made up of many different parts, each one essential, each one serving a different function. Understanding these parts is absolutely necessary if we want to understand their vision of the afterlife, because the journey of the soul after death involved all of these different elements coming apart and then being put back together in a new way. Let me walk you through each part carefully, and as I describe them, try to imagine yourself as an ancient Egyptian believing that you are not just one thing but a complex assembly of physical and spiritual components, all of which need to work together for you to be fully alive and fully yourself. First, there was the Ket, which is the easiest part for us to understand because it is simply the physical body. This is your flesh, your bones, your organs, everything material that makes up your physical form. The Egyptians understood that the body would decay after death, that it would rot and fall apart if nothing was done to preserve it. This is why they invented the process of mummification, which we will talk about in detail later. The key thing to understand here is that the Egyptians believed the physical body was absolutely necessary for existence in the afterlife. Without a body, the other parts of the soul would have nothing to anchor themselves to, nowhere to return to. The body was like a house that the soul lived in, and even after death, the soul needed that house to exist. The physical body was treated with tremendous respect throughout Egyptian history. Even in death, even when all the internal organs were removed during mummification, the body was handled with care and reverence. This was not just a corpse, not just dead meat to be disposed of. This was the sacred vessel that had housed a living soul, and it would house that soul again in a transformed state. The appearance of the body mattered. This is why embalmers worked so hard to restore a lifelike appearance after the desiccation process. They wanted the deceased to look like themselves, to be recognizable, because the Ba and Ka needed to recognize their own body in order to reunite with it. The second part was called the Ka. The Ka is harder to explain because we do not have an exact equivalent in modern Western thought. The Ka was your life force, your vital energy, the thing that made the difference between a living body and a dead one. Every person had a Ka, and it was created at the moment of birth by the god Khnum, who fashioned each person and their Ka on his potter's wheel. The Ka was like a spiritual double of your physical body, an exact copy that existed on a different level of reality. The Ka had needs. Just like a physical body, it required food and drink, though not physical sustenance, but rather the spiritual essence of offerings. This is why ancient Egyptians left bread and beer at tombs, why they carved images of feasts on tomb walls, why they endowed priests to make regular offerings. The Ka consumed the life force from these offerings, drawing nourishment from them in a way that sustained its existence. Without these offerings, the Ka would weaken and potentially fade away, which would be disastrous for the deceased person's continued existence. The hieroglyphic sign for Ka was 2 upraised arms, bent at the elbow, in a gesture of embracing or sustaining. This visual representation captures the essence of what the Ka was, the sustaining force, the embrace of life itself. When you see Egyptian art showing 2 identical figures standing side by side with this arm gesture, you are often seeing a person and their Ka depicted together. The Ka was your constant companion throughout life, an invisible twin that was as much a part of you as your physical body. After death, the Ka separated from the body but remained near it. This is why the location of burial was so important, why families chose tomb sites carefully and marked them clearly. The Ka needed to be able to find its way back to the body, needed to know where its home was. If the body was moved or destroyed, if the tomb was forgotten or lost, the Ka would wander confused and helpless, unable to fulfill its function. This was a terrible fate, and Egyptians did everything possible to prevent it from happening. The third part was the Ba, and this is probably the closest to what we might call the soul or personality. The Ba was everything that made you uniquely you. It was your personality, your character, your individual quirks and qualities. It was your emotions, your memories, your ability to think and feel and make choices. If the Ka was your life force, the Ba was your individuality, the specific pattern of thoughts and feelings that made you different from everyone else. The Ba was often depicted as a human-headed bird, usually a falcon with a human face. This image perfectly symbolizes the nature of the Ba. Like a bird, the Ba could fly, could move freely between different realms. It was not confined to the tomb or to the body. During the day, your Ba could leave your tomb and travel anywhere it wanted. It could visit your family, could watch over your children and grandchildren, could see the places you loved in life. The Ba could fly up to the sky and join the stars, or it could descend to the underworld and witness the mysteries there. But despite this freedom, the Ba needed to return to the body each night. Just as birds return to their nests, the Ba returned to its physical home to rest and to renew its connection with the body. This nightly reunion was essential. The Ba drew strength from the body, even the mummified body. The body was like a charging station, a place where the Ba could reconnect with the physical realm and maintain its own existence. Without this regular return, the Ba would become weak and confused, eventually losing its identity and fading into nothingness. This is why tomb paintings often show the Ba bird hovering over the mummy or perched on a nearby stand. These images show the Ba in the act of reunion, coming home to rest. The Ba might have spent the day flying free, experiencing the world, but at night it returned to the quiet darkness of the tomb, to the presence of its own mummified body, to restore and renew itself for another day. The Ba had consciousness and will. It could make choices, could act independently, but it was also vulnerable. It could be frightened, could be trapped, could be attacked by the demons and monsters of the underworld. This is why so many spells in the Book of the Dead are concerned with protecting the Ba, ensuring its freedom of movement, helping it avoid dangers. The Ba needed knowledge and protection to survive and thrive in the complex spiritual landscape of the afterlife. The fourth part was called the Akh, and this was the most exalted form of the soul. The word Akh means shining one, or enlightened one, and it represented the transformed, glorified spirit that a person could become after death. Not everyone achieved the state of becoming an Akh. It required passing through death successfully, passing the judgment of Osiris, and being reunited with all the parts of your soul in a new configuration. The Akh was the perfected soul, glorious and powerful, able to interact with the gods, able to live in the field of reeds, the Egyptian paradise. The Akh was not something you had in life. It was something you could become after death, the goal of all the funerary preparations and rituals. The Akh was created when the Ka and Ba were successfully reunited in the afterlife and transformed through the proper rituals and spells. You can think of it like this. The Ka was your life force, the Ba was your personality, and the Akh was the perfected, eternal combination of both, raised to a higher level of existence through the process of death, judgment, and resurrection. The Akh was often depicted as a crested ibis bird or sometimes as a mummiform figure surrounded by light. The light was important because the Akh was luminous, shining with divine radiance. To become an Akh was to become like the gods themselves, to join the company of the blessed dead who lived forever in paradise. The Akh had knowledge, power, and freedom. It could help the living, interceding with the gods on their behalf. It could travel throughout the cosmos, experiencing the mysteries of creation. It was the ultimate achievement, the transformation of a mortal human into an immortal divine being. The fifth part was called the Ren, which was your name. This might seem strange to us. How can your name be a part of your soul? But to the Egyptians, names had tremendous power. Your name was not just a label or a convenient way for people to refer to you. Your name was an essential part of who you were, as real and important as your body or your personality. To speak someone's name was to make them present, to call them into being, to give them reality and continued existence. This belief in the power of names had profound implications. It meant that as long as your name was remembered and spoken, you continued to exist in a very real sense. The dead were not truly gone as long as someone, somewhere, spoke their name. This is why Egyptian tombs and monuments are covered with names, repeated over and over in hieroglyphic inscriptions. The deceased person's name might appear hundreds of times on the walls of a single tomb, inscribed on every available surface. This was not vanity or ego. It was a survival strategy, a way of ensuring continued existence by making it impossible for the name to be forgotten. The power of names also had a dark side. If you wanted to destroy someone utterly, to erase them not just from life, but from existence itself, you destroyed their name. You chiseled it off their monuments, scratched it out of inscriptions, forbade anyone to speak it. This was called damnatio memoriae, the damnation of memory, and it was the ultimate curse, worse than death. Because if your name was forgotten, if no one ever spoke it again, you would cease to exist entirely, as if you had never been born. This happened to some pharaohs whose successors wanted to erase their memory. The heretic pharaoh Akhenaten, who tried to replace the traditional Egyptian gods with worship of a single god, the Aten, had his name systematically erased from monuments after his death. His successors wanted to obliterate his memory, to undo the religious revolution he had attempted. Fortunately for historians, they did not completely succeed, and Akhenaten's name survived to be rediscovered thousands of years later. The importance of the name also meant that knowing the true names of gods and demons gave you power over them. This is a common theme in Egyptian magic. If you knew the secret name of a god, you could command that god. If you knew the names of the demons guarding the gates of the underworld, you could pass safely through those gates. Knowledge of names was knowledge of essences, of the fundamental identity of things, and that knowledge conferred power. The sixth part was the shoot, which means shadow. The Egyptians believed your shadow was another aspect of your being, a part of you but also separate from you. The shadow was mysterious, a dark copy of your form that followed you everywhere in life. It was intangible, you could not touch it or hold it, yet it was undeniably real. The shadow was seen as having its own form of consciousness, its own degree of independence from the body and the other parts of the soul. In the afterlife, the shadow continued to exist. It could serve as a messenger for the deceased, travelling swiftly from place to place. The shadow was associated with protection and with the idea of being under the shelter or influence of something greater than yourself. When you stood in the shadow of a god or a king, you were under their protection, receiving their blessing and benefiting from their power. Your own shadow was a piece of that same concept, an extension of yourself that could provide shelter and comfort, that could represent your presence even when you were not physically there. The shadow appears less frequently in funerary texts than some of the other parts of the soul, but it was still considered important. Some spells are concerned with ensuring that the deceased has control over their shadow, that it is not separated from them or trapped somewhere. The shadow, like the other parts of the soul, needed to be preserved and protected to ensure the continued well-being of the deceased in the afterlife. The seventh part was called the Ib, the heart. Now, the heart was obviously a physical organ, part of the Ket, the physical body. But the Egyptians also saw it as much more than that. The heart was the seat of consciousness, emotion, thought, memory, and moral character. Unlike modern people who think with our brains, the Egyptians believed they thought with their hearts. Your heart was where your mind was located, where your personality resided, where your decisions were made. More importantly for our discussion of the afterlife, the heart was the record of your deeds. The Egyptians believed that everything you did in life was written on your heart. Every good action was recorded there. Every bad action was recorded there too. Your heart was like a living book, a complete and accurate account of your entire life. Nothing could be hidden from your heart because your heart was the part of you that had experienced everything you had experienced, that had been present for every choice you made, every word you spoke, every deed you performed. This is why the heart became absolutely central to the judgment after death. When you stood before Osiris in the hall of Ma'at, it was your heart that was weighed on the scales against the feather of truth. Not your brain, not your achievements, not your wealth or your social status, not the number of spells you had or the beauty of your tomb, but your heart. The question was simple and terrifying. Had you lived according to Ma'at? Had you been good? Your heart knew the answer, and your heart could not lie. Because the heart was so important, it was the only internal organ that was left inside the body during mummification. All the other organs were removed and preserved separately in canopic jars. The lungs, stomach, liver, and intestines each had their own jar, each protected by one of the 4 sons of Horus. But the heart stayed in place because you would need it in the afterlife. You would need it for the judgment. Without your heart, you could not be judged, could not pass into paradise, could not continue your journey. Some mummies have been found with heart scarabs, special amulets shaped like scarabs and inscribed with spells placed over where the heart had been. The most common spell on these heart scarabs was Spell 30 from the Book of the Dead, which asked the heart not to testify against the deceased during the judgment. The spell would say something like, "O my heart which I had from my mother, O my heart of my different ages, do not stand up as a witness against me. Do not be opposed to me in the tribunal. Do not be hostile to me in the presence of the keeper of the balance." This might seem like cheating, like trying to prevent your heart from telling the truth, but the Egyptians saw it differently. The spell was more like a prayer for mercy, asking that your good deeds would be remembered and your mistakes would be forgiven or forgotten. It was acknowledging human weakness, the reality that everyone makes mistakes, everyone has moments of anger or selfishness or fear that they are not proud of. The heart scarab was asking the gods to judge you on the totality of your life, on your general character and intentions, not on your worst moments. Beyond these 7 main parts, some texts mention additional components of the soul. The Sekhem was a form of spiritual power or vital force, the effectiveness and potency that allowed you to accomplish things and wield influence. The Sahu was the spiritual body, a perfected form different from the earthly Ket, the body you would inhabit in paradise. Different texts and different time periods emphasize different aspects, showing that Egyptian theology evolved and developed over the thousands of years of their civilization. The key point I want you to understand is this. The Egyptians saw human beings as incredibly complex, made up of many interlocking parts, physical and spiritual, material and divine. Each part had its own nature and its own needs. When you were alive, all these parts worked together in harmony, creating the complete person you were. When you died, they came apart. The great challenge of death, the great work of the funerary rituals, was putting them back together in a new form, reuniting the Ka, Ba, heart, name, shadow, and body into the glorified Akh that could live forever in paradise. This complex view of the soul shows sophistication and depth in Egyptian thought. They were not content with simple answers. They observed life carefully, thought deeply about what made a person, what made you uniquely yourself, what allowed you to be alive and conscious and capable. They broke down the human experience into its component parts and understood that all of these parts would need to be addressed, preserved, and cared for if death was to be overcome and eternal life achieved. Different Egyptians, depending on their social class and wealth, had different levels of access to the elaborate preparations and rituals that would preserve all these parts of the soul. But the fundamental belief was available to everyone. You were not just a body, you were a complex spiritual being, and with proper care and virtue, You could transform death from an ending into a new beginning, from termination into transformation, from mortality into immortality. This hope sustained the Egyptian people for thousands of years and produced some of the most magnificent art, architecture, and literature the world has ever known. Chapter 3. The Art and Mystery of Mummification. Let me tell you a story. Imagine you are living in ancient Egypt, perhaps 3,000 years ago. Your father, whom you loved dearly, has just passed away. You are filled with grief, but you are also filled with purpose because you know exactly what you must do now. Your father's journey to the afterlife depends on you. The preservation of his body, the performance of the correct rituals, the provision of offerings, all of this is your responsibility. If you fail, your father's soul might be lost forever, wandering in darkness. But if you do everything correctly, he will live again in paradise, young and strong and happy, forever. The first thing you must do is take your father's body to the place of embalming. This place is called the Per-Nefer, which means house of beauty or house of perfection. It is usually located near the Nile, outside the main settlement, because the process of mummification takes 70 days and involves substances with strong smells. The embalmers who work there are priests, trained in sacred knowledge passed down through generations. They are not just technicians performing a procedure, they are holy men participating in a sacred ritual, reenacting the very first mummification that the gods themselves performed for Osiris. Let me tell you the story of Osiris, because it explains why mummification exists at all and why it is considered a sacred act. Osiris was the first king of Egypt, a good and wise ruler who taught people how to cultivate crops, how to make bread and beer, how to live in civilization rather than chaos. He was beloved by his people and by his wife Isis, the goddess of magic. But Osiris had a brother named Set, and Set was consumed with jealousy. Set wanted to be king. He wanted the power and glory that Osiris enjoyed, so Set plotted to kill his brother. Set was clever. He built a beautiful chest, a coffin really, perfectly sized to Osiris's body, decorated with precious metals and beautiful inlays. He invited Osiris and many others to a great feast, and during the celebration, Set announced that he would give this magnificent chest to whoever it fit perfectly. This seemed like a harmless game, and various guests tried lying down in the chest, but it fit none of them. Finally, Osiris tried it, and of course it fit him perfectly, because Set had designed it for exactly that purpose. The moment Osiris lay down in the chest, Set and his conspirators slammed the lid shut, nailed it closed, sealed it with molten lead, and threw it into the Nile. The chest floated downriver, carrying the dead body of Osiris, eventually coming to rest in a foreign land called Byblos. There, a great tree grew around the chest, enclosing it completely within its trunk. The king of Byblos had this remarkable tree cut down and made into a pillar for his palace, never knowing that the chest with Osiris's body was hidden inside it. Isis, meanwhile, was devastated by the disappearance of her husband. She searched everywhere for him, refusing to accept his death as final. Eventually, through her magic and determination, she discovered where the chest was hidden. She travelled to Byblos, gained the trust of the queen there, and eventually revealed the truth and asked for the pillar. The king and queen, moved by her grief and impressed by her power, gave her the pillar. Isis cut away the wood, retrieved the chest with Osiris's body, and brought it back to Egypt. But the story does not end there. Set discovered what Isis had done. In a rage, he found where Isis had hidden the chest, opened it, and in his fury, he cut Osiris's body into pieces. Different versions of the myth say either 14 or 16 pieces. Set scattered these pieces across Egypt, trying to ensure that Osiris could never be resurrected, that his body would be lost forever. Isis, patient and determined, searched Egypt from one end to the other. With the help of her sister Nephthys, she found almost every piece of her husband's body. The one part she could not find was his phallus, which had been eaten by a fish. But Isis was a powerful magician. She fashioned a replacement for the missing part, and then she and Nephthys, with the help of the god Anubis, reassembled Osiris's body. This was the first mummification, the template for all mummifications that would follow. Using magic spells and sacred rituals, Isis brought Osiris back to life, at least temporarily. She took the form of a kite, a bird of prey, and hovered over his body, fanning it with her wings to give it breath. Osiris revived long enough for Isis to conceive a child with him, the god Horus, who would eventually grow up to defeat Set and restore order to Egypt. Although Osiris was resurrected, he did not return to rule the living. His time in the world of life had ended. Instead, he descended to the Duat and became the lord of the dead, the king of the afterlife, ruling over the realm of the deceased with justice and mercy. Every person who died and was mummified was symbolically identified with Osiris. Through mummification, you became Osiris your name, taking on the characteristics of the god, sharing in his death and his resurrection, hoping to share in his eternal life. Now, let me walk you through the actual process of mummification, as it would have been performed on your father. Remember, this process was refined over thousands of years. What I am describing is the classic method from the New Kingdom period, around 1500 to 1000 BCE, when mummification had reached its highest development and was performed with the greatest skill and care. First, the body is washed with water from the Nile and with palm wine. This washing is both practical, cleaning the body of dirt and bodily fluids, and symbolic, purifying it for its sacred transformation. The Nile water represents the primordial waters of Nun from which all life emerged. The palm wine has purifying and preservative properties. As the embalmers wash the body, they recite prayers and spells, beginning the process of transformation. The chief embalmer, the most senior and skilled of the priests, wears a mask representing Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming and the guardian of the dead. This is not just costume or theatre. By wearing this mask, the priest does not merely represent Anubis, he becomes Anubis for the duration of the ritual. The god works through him, guiding his hands, performing the same sacred acts that Anubis performed on the body of Osiris. This is a tremendous responsibility and a great honour. The priest must be pure, must have prepared himself through fasting and ritual cleansing, must be in the proper spiritual state to channel the presence of the god. Next comes a delicate and somewhat gruesome step. The body must be emptied of its internal organs, because these will decay rapidly and cause the body to rot from the inside. The process begins with the brain. Using a long metal hook inserted through the nose, the embalmers carefully work the hook up through the nasal cavity, breaking through the thin ethmoid bone that separates the nasal cavity from the brain cavity. They then use the hook to pull out pieces of brain tissue. They might also pour in a solvent to help liquefy the brain, making it easier to extract. This process requires great skill. The embalmers must work blind, using only their sense of feel to guide the hook. They must be careful not to damage the face, because the deceased needs to be recognizable in the afterlife. It takes time and patience, but eventually, most of the brain is removed. The Egyptians did not consider the brain important. They believed people thought with their hearts, so to them, the brain was just another organ to be discarded. Once removed, the brain matter was simply thrown away. But the other internal organs were different. These were important and had to be preserved. A cut is made in the left side of the abdomen, about 4 inches long, using a sharp blade made of obsidian or flint. Through this relatively small opening, the embalmers reach inside and carefully remove the lungs, stomach, liver, and intestines. This requires anatomical knowledge and considerable skill. The organs must be removed without damaging them too much, and the abdominal cavity must be cleaned thoroughly. These organs are washed in palm wine, dried, and treated with natron, the same salt that will be used to preserve the body itself. Eventually, each organ will be wrapped in linen and placed in its own special container called a canopic jar. These jars are often beautifully made, with lids shaped like the heads of the 4 sons of Horus, the gods who protect each organ. The jar for the lungs has a baboon head, representing Hapi. The jar for the stomach has a jackal head, representing Duamutef. The jar for the liver has a human head, representing Imsti. And the jar for the intestines has a falcon head, representing Quebe Senuef. Each canopic jar is also protected by one of 4 goddesses. Isis protects the liver, Nephthys protects the lungs, Neith protects the stomach, and Selket protects the intestines. These divine protectors ensure that the organs remain safe until they can be reunited with the body in the afterlife. The jars will be placed in the tomb alongside the mummy, often in a special chest designed to hold all 4 jars together. The heart, as I mentioned before, is left inside the body. It is too important to remove. Your father will need his heart for the judgment before Osiris. Some embalmers take extra care to ensure the heart is firmly in place, sometimes wrapping it in protective bandages or placing protective amulets around it while it is still inside the body cavity. The heart is the essence of the person, the record of their life, and it must be preserved at all costs. Now the body is ready for the crucial step: desiccation, the drying out of all moisture that would allow decay. The embalmers cover and pack the body, inside and out, with natron. Natron is a naturally occurring mixture of sodium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, sodium chloride, and sodium sulfate, found in dried lake beds in the Wadi Natron region of Egypt. It is a remarkable substance, a gift from the gods themselves, perfectly suited for preserving flesh. Natron works in several ways. It absorbs moisture, pulling the water out of the body's tissues. It kills bacteria that would cause decay. It dissolves body fats. And it maintains the body's structural integrity, preventing the collapse and distortion that would otherwise occur. The body is completely covered in natron, piled high with it, packed both outside and inside the body cavity. Then it is left in this state for 40 days, sometimes even longer, if the body is large or if the embalmers want to be especially thorough. During this 40-day period, the natron works its magic. All the moisture is slowly drawn out of the body's tissues. The flesh becomes dry, leathery, darkened. The body loses a significant amount of weight, shrinking somewhat as the water that made up much of its bulk is removed. When the process is complete, the body is essentially freeze-dried, if you will, preserved in a state where decay cannot occur, because there is no moisture left for bacteria to thrive in. After 40 days, the natron is removed and the body is washed again, this time more gently, with water and wine and fragrant oils. The body looks very different now than it did at the beginning. It is shrunken, dark, leathery, but it is preserved, incorruptible, ready for the next stages of preparation. The embalmers must now restore its appearance, making it look as much like the living person as possible. The body cavity, now empty and dry, is packed with materials to restore its shape. The embalmers might use linen cloths, sawdust, sand, or even dried lichens. They pack these materials carefully, trying to make the body look natural and lifelike. The incision in the abdomen is sewn closed or covered with a plate, often made of wax or metal, sometimes inscribed with protective symbols or images of the Wadjet eye, the eye of Horus, which represents wholeness and healing. The embalmers pay special attention to the face, because this is what people will remember. This is what the Ka and Ba will need to recognize. They might place false eyes in the eye sockets, made of stone or painted linen. They might pack the cheeks and nostrils to prevent them from collapsing. They apply cosmetics, painting the face to give it a more lifelike appearance. In some periods, particularly during the 21st dynasty, embalmers became incredibly skilled at this restoration work, using subcutaneous packing to fill out the skin, making the mummy look remarkably lifelike. The body is anointed with oils and resins. These substances have multiple purposes. They keep the skin supple and prevent it from becoming too brittle. They provide a pleasant smell, covering any remaining odor of decay. And they have symbolic significance, connecting the deceased with the gods, particularly with Osiris and Ra, both of whom are associated with sacred oils and perfumes. The finest resins are expensive, imported from distant lands like Lebanon and Somalia, showing the wealth and status of the deceased. Now comes the wrapping. And this is perhaps the most visible and iconic part of the mummification process. This is not simply a matter of rolling bandages around the body. This is a ritual process, and each layer, each wrapping, has meaning and purpose. The embalmers wrap each finger and toe individually first, treating them with care and respect. Then they wrap the hands and feet, then the arms and legs, then the torso and head, layer upon layer upon layer of linen bandages. The linen used for wrapping is often old, previously used for other purposes. Egyptians recycled cloth, and there was no shame in using worn linen for mummy wrappings. What mattered was not that the cloth was new, but that it was clean and that there was enough of it. A well-wrapped mummy might use hundreds of square yards of linen, making it a significant expense even when using recycled material. As they wrap, the embalmers recite spells continuously. Every wrap is accompanied by prayers and magical formulas. They are not just protecting the body physically, they are surrounding it with layers of magical protection, creating a cocoon of sacred words and intentions that will guard the deceased on their journey through the afterlife. Between the layers of wrapping, the embalmers place protective amulets at specific locations on the body. These amulets are not randomly placed. Ancient texts, particularly the Book of the Dead, give precise instructions for where each amulet should go. The Ankh, symbol of life, might be placed on the chest. The Djet pillar, symbol of stability and the backbone of Osiris, might be placed along the spine. The Tjet knot, symbol of Isis's protection, might be placed near the throat. The Eye of Horus, the Wadjet eye, might be placed on the chest or near the incision in the abdomen. There are dozens of different types of amulets, each with its own power and purpose. The heart scarab protects the heart during judgment. The headrest amulet ensures the deceased can lift their head in the afterlife. The papyrus column brings youth and vigor. Two-finger amulets help the deceased climb out of the coffin. Amulets shaped like various gods invoke the protection of those deities. The placement of these amulets is as important as the amulets themselves. They must be positioned correctly according to the ancient instructions, or their power might not work properly. As the wrapping progresses and the mummy takes shape, the embalmers pour resin over the bandages to seal them. This resin becomes hard when it cools, making the mummy rigid and protecting it from damage. The amount of resin used varies depending on the wealth of the family. Some mummies are thoroughly soaked in resin, making them very dark and hard. Others have resin applied more sparingly, mainly at key points and on the final outer layers. The face is wrapped last, and with particular care. Often, a mask is placed over the wrapped face. For royalty and the very wealthy, this mask might be made of gold, like the famous mask of Tutankhamun. For others, it might be made of cartonnage, a material similar to papier-mâché, made from linen or papyrus soaked in plaster. These masks show the deceased in their idealized form, young and beautiful, with the divine beard and the striped nemes, headdress of a king, because in death, everyone becomes like Osiris, everyone becomes like royalty. The whole process takes 70 days. Why 70? This number is not arbitrary. It corresponds to the period that the star Sopdet, which we call Sirius, disappears from the night sky each year. Sopdet is the brightest star visible from Egypt, and the ancient Egyptians tracked its movements carefully because its reappearance in the sky just before dawn coincided with the annual flooding of the Nile, the most important event in the Egyptian year. Sopdet disappears below the horizon for 70 days, a period when it cannot be seen from Egypt. Then it reappears, rising just before the sun in the east, announcing the coming flood. This period of invisible renewal in the heavens mirrors the period of transformation the body undergoes in the House of Beauty. Like Sopdet, the deceased has gone through a period of disappearance and is now ready to be reborn, to reappear, to begin a new cycle of existence. When the 70 days are complete, your father's body has been transformed. It is no longer a corpse subject to decay. It is a mummy, a sacred object, a preserved vessel ready to house the soul throughout eternity. But mummification is not the end of the process. It is only the preparation. The mummy must now undergo one final crucial ceremony before it can truly be said to live again. This ceremony is called the opening of the mouth, and it is perhaps the most important ritual in all of Egyptian religion. On the day of the funeral, the mummy is transported from the place of embalming to the tomb. The procession is as elaborate as your family can afford. Professional mourners are hired, women who are skilled at the public display of grief. They wail and cry out, they tear their clothing, they throw dust on their heads, they beat their breasts. Their grief is loud and visible, making sure everyone knows that an important person has died, that a soul is leaving the community of the living and joining the community of the dead. The mummy, enclosed in its beautiful coffin, is drawn on a sledge pulled by oxen or carried by pallbearers. Following the coffin come servants and family members carrying everything your father will need in the afterlife. There are chairs and beds, chests of clothing, boxes of jewellery, baskets of food, jars of wine and beer, cosmetics, tools, weapons, everything. The canopic jars with the preserved organs are carried carefully. If your father was wealthy, there might be a model boat, or model workers for his afterlife estate, or even a shabti figures, small servant statues, that will do labour for him in the field of reeds. At the tomb entrance, the mummy is removed from its coffin and stood upright, facing east toward the rising sun. This orientation is significant. The east is the direction of rebirth, where the sun rises each morning, where the dead are reborn into new life. Your father, standing upright one last time, faces the dawn of his new existence. Now the opening of the mouth ceremony begins. A priest, wearing the distinctive leopard skin that marks him as a Sem priest, approaches the mummy. He holds special ritual tools, an adze, which is a woodworking tool with a curved blade, a special knife called a peshkef, and various other implements. These tools are not new. They are ancient, passed down through generations of priests, used in countless opening of the mouth ceremonies, made sacred by their long use in this holy ritual. The priest touches these tools to the mouth, eyes, ears, and nose of the mummy mask, while reciting powerful spells. With each touch, he symbolically opens these organs, restoring their function. He touches the mouth, saying, "Your mouth was closed, but I have set in order for you your mouth and your teeth. The mouth can now eat, drink, speak, and breathe." He touches the eyes, saying, "I open for you your eyes." The eyes can now see the light of the sun, can witness the wonders of the afterlife. He touches the ears. "I open for you your ears." The ears can now hear the voices of the gods, the prayers of the living. He touches the nose. "I open for you your nostrils." The nose can now breathe the air of eternal life. can smell the sweet incense of offerings. This is profoundly moving ceremony. Through ritual, through sacred words and sacred actions, the dead becomes alive again. Your father is no longer an inert mummy. He is a transformed being, an Ach, capable of seeing and hearing and speaking and moving. He has been resurrected, not back into mortal life, but forward into eternal life. He has become like Osiris, who died and was resurrected, who became the Lord of the afterlife. Additional offerings are made, a foreleg of a calf, representing strength and vitality, incense and libations, bread and beer. All of these are presented to the mummy, while more spells are recited. The ceremony can last for hours, with multiple priests and family members participating, each performing their assigned roles, each contributing to the great work of bringing the dead back to life. When the ceremony is complete, the mummy is placed back in its coffin. The coffin itself is often shaped like a human figure, with a beautifully painted face representing your father in his idealized form. This is called an anthropoid coffin, and it serves as a substitute body, another layer of protection, another way of ensuring that the Ka and Ba will always have a recognizable form to return to. The coffin is placed in a stone sarcophagus, a massive rectangular box that provides additional protection from tomb robbers and from the weight of the earth and rock above. The sarcophagus might be decorated with religious texts and images, turning it into another layer of magical protection. Some sarcophagi show the goddess Nut on the inside of the lid, stretching her body over the deceased just as she stretches over the entire world, offering her divine protection and the promise of rebirth through her body. As the sun is reborn through her body each morning, around the sarcophagus in the burial chamber, all the grave goods are arranged carefully. Furniture is positioned as it would be in a house. Storage chests are stacked against walls. Jars of food and wine are lined up neatly. Shabti figures, sometimes hundreds of them, are placed in special boxes. Everything is done according to tradition, following patterns established thousands of years ago, because this is how it has always been done, how it must be done for the magic to work properly. On the walls of the burial chamber, if your family can afford it, artists have painted elaborate scenes. These are not random decorations. Every image has purpose and meaning. There are scenes of your father doing things he enjoyed in life. Hunting in the marshes, fishing in the Nile, overseeing his estates, feasting with family and friends. These images are magical. They make these activities real in the afterlife. If there is a painted image of your father harvesting wheat, he will be able to harvest wheat in the field of reeds. If there is an image of him feasting, he will be able to feast in paradise. There are also religious scenes, your father worshipping the gods, your father making offerings to Osiris, your father being presented to various deities. These images show your father's piety, demonstrate his worthiness, and establish his relationship with the divine powers who control the afterlife. There are protective deities painted on the walls, fierce gods and goddesses who will guard the tomb against intruders, against demons, against anything that might harm the deceased. Most importantly, there are texts, spells from the Book of the Dead, prayers, offering formulas, your father's name repeated over and over. These texts are in beautiful hieroglyphic script, often painted in bright colours, meant to last forever. They are instructions for the afterlife journey, protective spells, prayers for sustenance and safety. They are everything your father needs to know to successfully navigate the dangers of the Duat and reach paradise. After everything is arranged perfectly, after a final prayer and a final offering, the burial chamber is sealed. Large stone blocks are moved into place, closing off the chamber from the corridor. The corridor itself might be filled with rubble to discourage tomb robbers. The entrance to the tomb is sealed with plaster and stamped with official seals. Your father is now alone in the darkness. surrounded by all the things he will need, protected by magic and by the solid rock of the earth itself. But your duties are not over. You will return to this tomb regularly, as often as you can, for the rest of your life. You will bring fresh offerings of food and drink. You will speak your father's name, keeping his wren alive. You will burn incense, perform libations, recite prayers. This ongoing care is essential. The dead depend on the living for sustenance and remembrance. In return, the dead protect the living, intercede with the gods, provide blessings and guidance. It is a relationship that continues beyond death, a bond that cannot be broken by the mere fact of physical separation. And when you die, your own children will do the same for you, and their children for them, and on through the generations. The living and the dead are all part of the same family, the same community, just existing in different realms. Death does not sever these connections. If anything, death makes them more important, more precious, more worthy of care and attention. This is the Egyptian way, the tradition that sustained their civilization for thousands of years, the belief that love and family and memory are stronger than death itself. Chapter 4. The Book of the Dead and the Spells of Power. Imagine you are standing at the entrance to the most dangerous journey anyone can ever take. Ahead of you lies a dark path through an unknown realm filled with hostile beings, gates that will not open without the correct password, challenges that require perfect knowledge to overcome. You are alone, newly dead, confused, vulnerable. How will you find your way? How will you protect yourself? How will you know what to say and do at each stage of the journey? This is why the ancient Egyptians developed what we call the Book of the Dead. I need to tell you something important right away. There is no single book called the Book of the Dead. This name was invented by modern scholars in the 19th century. The Egyptians called these texts the Book of Coming Forth by Day, or the Spells for Going Out into the Day, and they were not a single, standardized book, but rather a collection of spells, prayers, hymns, and instructions that could be selected and customized for each person. Think of it like a menu at a restaurant. You could choose the spells you wanted, the ones you could afford, the ones that seemed most helpful for your particular needs and concerns. These funerary texts have a long and fascinating history that stretches back to the very beginning of Egyptian civilization. The oldest versions are called the pyramid texts, and they were written in hieroglyphics on the walls of royal pyramids during the Old Kingdom, around 2400 to 2300 BCE, more than 4,000 years ago. These texts were originally exclusive to pharaohs, a collection of spells to help the king navigate the afterlife and join the gods, particularly to join Ra in his eternal journey across the sky. The pyramid texts are the oldest religious writings in the world, older than any other sacred scriptures we know of, and they give us an amazing window into the beliefs of ancient people living nearly 5,000 years ago. The Pyramid of Unas, the last king of the 5th dynasty, contains the earliest known pyramid texts. When archaeologists first entered his burial chamber in the 19th century, they found the walls covered in vertical columns of hieroglyphs, carved into the stone and painted blue-green, the colour of new life and resurrection. These were not meant to be read by the living. They were meant for the king himself, providing him with the knowledge and power he would need in the afterlife. Reading these texts today is like eavesdropping on a conversation between a dead king and the gods, witnessing spells and rituals that were meant to remain hidden forever in the darkness of the tomb. As time went on, these royal spells became available to nobles and wealthy people. During the Middle Kingdom, around 2000 BCE, they were adapted and expanded into what we call the coffin texts, because they were written on coffins. The coffin texts include many spells from the pyramid texts, but also add new ones, and they show a shift in belief toward the idea that anyone, not just the king, could achieve eternal life. The path to paradise was opening wider, becoming more democratic, accessible to more people. The texts written on coffins were usually on the inside, where the deceased could see them. Imagine lying in your coffin, in the darkness of the tomb, and being able to read the spells that would protect you and guide you. The hieroglyphs, glowing faintly in whatever light filtered in, or in the spiritual light that the deceased could see with transformed eyes. These were your instructions, your map, your weapons for the journey ahead. Finally, during the New Kingdom, around 1550 BCE and later, these texts evolved into the form we call the Book of the Dead. Instead of being written on pyramid walls or coffins, these spells were usually written on papyrus scrolls that could be placed in the tomb with the mummy, or even wrapped within the mummy's bandages, close to the body. The papyrus scrolls were often beautifully illustrated, with vignettes, small pictures showing the deceased, performing various rituals or encountering gods and demons. These illustrations were not mere decoration. They were visual spells, images that made the described actions real. The quality of these papyrus scrolls varied enormously depending on what the person's family could afford. The wealthiest individuals could commission custom scrolls written specifically for them, with their name inserted throughout, with spells carefully selected to address their particular concerns, with beautiful illustrations painted in vibrant colours by skilled artists. These scrolls could be dozens of feet long, true masterpieces of art and religious literature. The most famous Book of the Dead papyrus that has survived is called the Papyrus of Ani, dating to around 1250 BCE during the 19th dynasty. It belonged to a royal scribe named Ani and his wife Tutu. This papyrus is over 78 feet long and contains a carefully selected collection of spells along with gorgeous illustrations. The colours are still vibrant after more than 3,000 years. The reds and blues and greens and golds still bright. The hieroglyphs still clear and readable. The figures of gods and people still full of life and movement. You can see this papyrus today in the British Museum in London. And even viewing it through glass in a museum, you can feel its power, its beauty, its solemn purpose. For those who could not afford custom scrolls, there were off-the-shelf versions, pre-written papyri, where spaces were left blank for the deceased person's name to be inserted later. These were cheaper, but still valuable, still containing powerful spells that could help in the afterlife. The scribe would write the papyrus ahead of time, leaving N or a blank space wherever the name should go, and then when someone purchased the scroll, the name would be filled in. Sometimes the scribes made mistakes, forgetting to fill in all the name spaces, or misspelling the name, or using the wrong grammatical form. These human errors make the papyri more touching somehow, reminding us that they were made by real people, fallible humans trying their best to serve the dead. And for those who had no scrolls at all, they might have just a few spells written on their coffin or on strips of linen placed over the mummy. Or they might rely on spells painted on the tomb walls, if they had a tomb. Or they might have to depend on memory, on spells they had learned in life, having heard them recited at other people's funerals. The Egyptians believed that the gods were merciful, that sincere piety and a good heart mattered more than wealth, that someone poor but virtuous had as much hope of reaching paradise as someone rich with a fancy papyrus. So what kinds of spells are in the Book of the Dead? Let me give you a sense of the range and variety, the different types of help and protection these spells were meant to provide. There are nearly 200 different spells that appear in various Books of the Dead, though no single papyrus contains all of them. Each person's Book of the Dead was unique, customized to their needs and their family's budget. Some spells are protective, designed to keep away hostile beings in the underworld. Spell 33, for example, is for repelling serpents. It gives you words of power to say to any snake you encounter in the Duat, commanding it to go away, invoking the names of gods who have power over serpents. Spell 35 is for not being eaten by snakes in the realm of the dead. The fear of snakes was very real in Egypt, where venomous cobras and vipers were common dangers, and the Egyptians imagined that the underworld would be full of even more dangerous serpents. Other spells are transformative, allowing you to change shape into various animals or forms. Spell 76 is for assuming the form of whatever one wishes. Spell 77 is for being transformed into a golden falcon. Spell 78 is for being transformed into a divine falcon. There are spells for becoming a lotus flower, a phoenix, a swallow, a crocodile, a serpent, even specific gods. These transformations were not just fantasies. The Egyptians believed that in the spiritual realm, consciousness was fluid, that you truly could take on different forms, and that these forms gave you different abilities and protections. Why would you want to transform into different creatures? Each form had its advantages. As a falcon, you could fly swiftly, escaping dangers and traveling great distances. As a serpent, you could move through narrow spaces, could shed your skin and be reborn. As a lotus, you could float on water and be associated with the sun god who emerged from a lotus at the beginning of time. As a crocodile, you would be fierce and feared, able to overcome enemies. Each transformation was a tool, a strategy for dealing with the challenges of the afterlife. Some spells provide essential knowledge. Spell 17 is one of the longest and most complex, a detailed theological text that explains the nature of the gods, the structure of the cosmos, the meaning of creation. It is filled with questions and answers, helping the deceased understand the divine mysteries they will encounter. This spell shows that intellectual knowledge was considered essential for success in the afterlife. You needed to understand the nature of reality, the relationships between the gods, the principles that govern the universe. Ignorance was dangerous. Knowledge was protection and power. Spell 149 describes the 14 mounds or regions in the afterlife, giving their names and characteristics. Spell 146 describes the gates and portals of the house of Osiris, telling you the names of each gate and what to say to pass through. This geographic and architectural knowledge was crucial. The afterlife was a complex place with its own geography, its own structures, and you needed to know your way around, needed to know the names of places and the passwords to get through barriers. Some spells ensure you have the necessities of existence. Spell 54 is for giving breath in the realm of the dead, because breath is life, and without breath you cannot exist. This spell ensures you can breathe in the afterlife, that you are not suffocated or choked. Spell 55 is for giving breath in the water of the realm of the dead, protecting you from drowning in the rivers and lakes of the underworld. Spell 52 is for not eating feces in the realm of the dead. Spell 53 is for not eating feces and not drinking urine in the realm of the dead. These spells sound almost comical to modern readers, but they address a real fear. The Egyptians imagined that there were places in the underworld where the damned were forced to consume excrement, where food and drink were perverted into disgusting parodies. These spells protected you from such degradation, ensuring you would have proper nourishment. Spell 44 is for not dying again in the realm of the dead. Yes, even in the afterlife, there were dangers that could kill you a second time, destroying you permanently. This spell protected against that ultimate annihilation, ensuring your continued existence. Spell 45 is for not putrefying in the realm of the dead, protecting your spiritual body from decay, just as mummification protected your physical body. Some spells give you power and control. Spell 56 is for breathing air and having power over water in the realm of the dead. Spell 57 is for breathing air and having power over water in the realm of the dead, a variant of the same spell. These spells give you mastery over the basic elements, ensuring you can breathe and drink, that you are not at the mercy of the environment but have power over it. Spell 62 is 4. Drinking water in the realm of the dead. Water was precious in Egypt, a desert country where water meant life. The Egyptians feared dying of thirst in the afterlife, just as much as they feared it in life. This spell ensured that you would always have access to cool, clean water to drink, that you would never suffer from thirst. And then there are the most important spells, the ones that deal directly with the judgment and with reaching paradise. Spell 125 is the longest and most crucial spell in the entire Book of the Dead. It deals with the judgment before Osiris, the weighing of the heart, the interrogation by the 42 divine judges. This spell contains the negative confession, the list of sins you must deny having committed, the prayers and declarations you must make to prove your worthiness. Let me walk you through spell 125 carefully, because understanding it is key to understanding the Egyptian concept of morality and judgment. The spell begins with a description of entering the Hall of Ma'at, the Hall of Two Truths, where judgment takes place. It gives the names of the gates and the guardians you must address to gain entry. Then it provides the words you must say when you stand before Osiris and the assembled gods. The first part is a general declaration of innocence. Hail to you, great God, Lord of truth and justice. I have come to you, my Lord. I have been brought that I might see your perfection. I know you, and I know the names of the 42 gods who are with you in the Hall of Ma'at, who live on those who harbour evil, and who gulp down their blood on that day of the reckoning of characters in the presence of Wennefer. Behold, I have come to you. I have brought you truth. I have repelled falsehood for you. I have not done falsehood against people. I have not impoverished my associates. I have done no wrong in the place of truth. Then comes the negative confession proper, where you must address each of the 42 divine judges individually, denying the specific sin that each one oversees. Each judge has a name that relates to their function, and you must address them correctly. The list of denials gives us a fascinating insight into Egyptian ethics, into what they considered good and evil, right and wrong. Some of the denials are about violence. I have not killed. I have not ordered to kill. I have not caused pain. I have not caused anyone to weep. I have not made anyone afraid. The Egyptians valued peace and non-violence. Causing suffering to others was a serious sin. Many denials are about honesty and integrity. I have not spoken lies. I have not borne false witness. I have not spoken evil. I have not cursed. I have not exaggerated in speech. Truth was sacred too. The Egyptians, one of the fundamental principles of Ma'at, lying undermined the order of the universe. Several denials concern property and theft. I have not stolen. I have not robbed. I have not seized property wrongfully. I have not taken milk from the mouths of children. I have not driven cattle away from their pastures. I have not trapped birds of the gods. I have not caught fish with bait of fish. All forms of theft were condemned, from grand larceny to petty pilfering. Respect for others' property was essential to social harmony. There are denials about sexual conduct. I have not committed adultery. I have not defiled myself. I have not copulated with a man. I have not copulated in the sacred places of the god. The Egyptians had clear standards for sexual behavior, condemning adultery and certain other sexual acts as violations of Ma'at. Several denials concern religious observance. I have not blasphemed against God. I have not reviled God. I have not stolen from the gods. I have not defrauded offerings. I have not plundered the gods' offerings. Proper respect for the gods and their property was mandatory. The temples and their offerings were sacred and inviolable. Interestingly, several denials concern water, which makes sense in a desert civilization. I have not held back water in its season. I have not built a dam against running water. I have not extinguished a needed fire. Interfering with water supply was a serious crime in Night. Egypt, where irrigation was essential for agriculture, and where water belonged to the community, not to individuals. There are also denials about social harmony and proper behaviour. I have not been contentious in affairs. I have not been quarrelsome. I have not been impatient. I have not been garrulous. I have not been sullen. I have not magnified my voice in speech. I have not been hot-tempered. The Egyptians valued social harmony, self-control, and proper comportment. Causing strife and discord was a sin against Ma'at. And there are denials that seem more metaphorical or spiritual. I have not been deaf to words of truth. I have not stirred up strife. I have not made terror. I have not transgressed. I have not increased my wealth, except with such things as are my own possessions. I have not thought scorn of the God who is in my city. After completing the negative confession, addressing all 42 judges, you make a final general declaration. I am pure, I am pure, I am pure, I am pure. My purity is the purity of that great phoenix which is in Heracleopolis, because I am truly the nose of the Lord of Breath, who makes all people live on that day of completing the Eye of Horus in Heliopolis. No evil shall befall me in this land, in this hall of Ma'at, because I know the names of these gods who are in it, the followers of the great God. These declarations are more than just denials of wrongdoing. They are also positive affirmations of virtue. You are not just saying what you didn't do. You are asserting what you are: pure, truthful, knowledgeable, worthy. You are claiming your place among the blessed dead, your right to proceed into paradise. Spell 125 also includes a second part, often called the Declaration of Innocence before the Gods, where you make similar claims in a different format, this time speaking directly to your own heart and to the gods collectively rather than to the individual judges. This redundancy was intentional. The more times you declared your innocence, the more firmly you established it. After the judgment spells, spell 110 describes the field of reeds, the paradise that awaits those who pass the judgment. It gives the names of the different regions within the field of reeds, describes the gods who rule each region, and explains what you will do there. This spell often includes a map, a diagram showing the geography of paradise with its canals and islands and gates. This map is both informational and magical. By showing you the field of reeds, it makes it real, makes it accessible, helps ensure you will actually reach it. There are many other important spells I could describe. Spell 18 is a hymn to Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, asking for his help in the judgment. Spell 30 is for not letting the heart create opposition, the spell inscribed on heart scarabs, asking the heart not to testify against its owner. Spell 72 is for going out into the day and opening up the tomb, allowing the bar to leave the tomb during the day and move freely between the worlds. Spell 89 is for causing the bar to be reunited with its body. This spell addresses one of the fundamental challenges of death. The ka and ba separate from the body when you die, and they must be reunited for you to achieve eternal life. This spell provides the words of power that make this reunion possible. Spell 92 is for opening the tomb for the bar and for coming out by day. Spell 100 is for making a bar worthy and for causing a soul to enter his boat. These spells ensure mobility and fairies' sate, freedom, ensuring you are not trapped in the tomb, not confined to one place, but can move throughout the cosmos as the gods do. The spells were not just read silently, they were meant to be spoken aloud. The Egyptian language had a word, heka, that means both magic and to speak. Words had power. To speak something was to make it real, to cause it to happen. The hieroglyphs themselves were called medu netje, which means words of the god or divine speech. Writing was not just a way of recording information, it was a way of making things happen, of wielding divine power. This is why the spells had to be written correctly, with the proper hieroglyphs in the proper order, following the proper formulas. A mistake in writing could mean a mistake in magic, could mean the spell would not work. Scribes who wrote books of the dead took their work very seriously, knowing that a person's eternal life might depend on their accuracy. It is also why the spells needed to be spoken aloud, ideally by priests during the funeral, but also by the deceased in the afterlife. The written spell was potential, dormant power. Speaking it activated that power, released it, made it effective. This is why the opening of the mouth ceremony was so important. It enabled the deceased to speak again, to recite the spells they needed, to wield the power of divine words. The Book of the Dead was not the only funerary text the Egyptians used. There were other collections of spells and instructions. The Duat, or Book of the Hidden Chamber, described the 12 hours of the night, the journey of the sun god Ra through the underworld. The Book of Gates described the gates that divided the underworld into regions, the guardians of those gates, and the passwords needed to pass through. The Book of Caverns described the caverns where the blessed dead and the damned existed in the afterlife. These texts were usually found in royal tombs, painted on the walls of burial chambers, guiding the king through his transformation into a god. All of these texts, all of these spells and instructions, served the same fundamental purpose: to help the deceased navigate the afterlife successfully. They were guidebooks, maps, phrase books for travellers in a foreign land. They provided the knowledge needed to overcome challenges, the words needed to open gates, the protection needed against dangers. They were tools for survival in the most literal sense, because without them, the soul might be lost, might be destroyed, might fail to reach paradise. But as important as these texts were, they were not sufficient in themselves. They could not save a wicked person. They could not make a heavy heart light. They were helpers, valuable and powerful, but they worked alongside virtue, not in place of it. The ideal was to combine ethical living with ritual knowledge, to be both good and prepared, to have both a light heart and powerful spells. Together, these gave you the best chance of success in the judgment and in the journey beyond. Chapter 5. The terrifying journey through the Duat. The moment has come. Your father has died, been mummified, had his mouth opened, been placed in his tomb. Now, while your family gathers for the funeral feast, eating and drinking and sharing memories, his ba separates from his body and begins the most dangerous journey imaginable. He is entering the Duat, the realm of the dead, a place that exists somehow below the earth and beyond the western horizon, where the sun goes when it sets each evening. What awaits him there? What challenges will he face? How will he find his way through 12 hours of darkness, through dangers that even the gods must struggle against? The Duat is not a single place. It is vast, complex, divided into many regions, each with its own characteristics and dangers. Different texts describe it differently, but the most detailed description comes from the Duat, one of the most important funerary texts, which describes the Duat as divided into 12 regions, one for each hour of the night. This makes sense because the sun god Ra journeys through the Duat during the 12 hours of darkness, battling demons and renewing himself before being reborn at dawn. The deceased must follow a similar path, accompanying Ra or paralleling his journey, seeking to be reborn as Ra is reborn. Let me take you through this journey hour by hour, region by region, based on the Duat and other texts like the Book of Gates. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you are your father, newly dead, entering this strange realm. You find yourself standing at the entrance to a vast, dark cavern. The light from the world of the living is behind you, growing dimmer, fading away. Before you is a gate, massive and foreboding, made of some dark metal or stone that seems to absorb light. Guards stand on either side, fierce beings with the heads of animals and bodies of men, carrying knives and staffs, wearing the kilts of soldiers but with faces of jackals, hawks, crocodiles. They challenge you, and their voices are harsh, inhuman. Who are you? What is your name? Why should we let you pass? Are you worthy to enter the realm of the dead? This is the first test, and it comes immediately. You must respond correctly, must know what to say. This is why you need spell 125 from the Book of the Dead, which tells you how to address the guardians of each gate. You must name the gate itself, must name the doorkeeper, must name the herald who announces you, and you must speak words of power. You take a breath, drawing on the knowledge you gained in life, from hearing the spells recited, from the papyrus scroll buried with you, from the teachings of priests. You say, your voice stronger than you feel, I am N, justified of voice, pure of hands. I have come in peace, seeking to pass through your gate. I have not done evil against people. I have not mistreated animals. I have done ma'at, which the gods love. I have given bread to the hungry, water to the thirsty, clothing to the naked. Open for me, for I am pure, I am pure, I am pure. The guards examine you with their inhuman eyes, weighing your words, looking into your bar, searching for deception or wickedness. The moment stretches out, tense and frightening. Then, slowly, they step aside. The gate opens with a sound like distant thunder, revealing the darkness beyond. You have passed the first test. You enter. You are now in the first hour of the night, the first region of the Duat. This region is at the edge of the underworld, the threshold between life and death. The landscape is strange, unlike anything you knew in life. There is land, but it seems insubstantial, shifting, as if the ground is made of mist or shadow. There are other souls here, newly dead like yourself, confused and frightened, calling out for help. Some seem to know where they are going, walking with purpose, perhaps people who died with proper preparation and knowledge. Others wander aimlessly, lost and bewildered. You might see faces you recognize, relatives and friends who died before you. Your own father, perhaps, if he died before you, or your mother, or a brother or sister. The sight brings some comfort. You are not entirely alone in this strange place. They greet you, their forms translucent and strange in the dim light, and they offer encouragement. Keep going. Do not stop here. The way is ahead. Remember what you know. Call upon the gods. The light in this region is strange, dim, and grey. Not true darkness, but not light either, like twilight that never ends. You can see, but not clearly. Shapes loom out of the greyness. Hills that shift and change, valleys that seem to lead nowhere, rivers that flow in impossible directions, sometimes upward. The laws of the physical world do not fully apply here. This is the realm of spirit, where thought and will shape reality more than physical forces. As you move deeper into the first hour, you see something that fills you with both hope and fear. A river, wide and slow, winding through the landscape. This is the river that flows through the Duat, connecting all its regions. To continue your journey, you must cross this river or travel along it. But you cannot swim. Swimming is not possible in these spiritual waters, or perhaps it is possible but infinitely dangerous, exposing you to creatures that lurk beneath the surface. You need a boat. You remember spell 99 from the Book of the Dead, for bringing a ferry boat in the realm of the dead. You speak the spell, calling out into the greyness, O ferryman, bring me your boat. I am one who knows the waterways of the Duat. I know the names of your boat and its parts. I know the names of the rudder, the oars, the mast, the sail. I am worthy to travel these waters." Out of the mist, a boat appears, long and narrow, made of some dark wood, and in it stands a ferryman. His face is hidden beneath a hooded cloak, but his hands are visible, thin and dark, as he poles the boat toward you. When he reaches the shore where you stand, he does not immediately invite you aboard. Instead, he questions you, testing your knowledge. "What is the name of the seat of this boat?" he asks in a voice like wind through reeds. You remember the spell, remember the long lists of names you learned. "Your seat is called Gatherer of Souls," you answer. "What is the name of the oars?" he asks. "The oars are called Fingers of Horus," you reply. "What is the name of the mast?" "The mast is called Lady of Heaven," you say. He asks several more questions, and each time you answer correctly, drawing on the knowledge encoded in the spells. Finally satisfied, the ferryman nods and gestures for you to board. You step into the boat, feeling it rock beneath you, and the ferryman pushes off from the shore. You are moving now, travelling deeper into the Duat, entering the second hour. As you travel along the river, you see Ra's solar boat ahead of you in the distance, a magnificent vessel filled with gods. Ra himself stands in the centre of the boat, but he appears different from how he did during the day. He is old now, an ancient man called Ra, or Atum, tired from his journey across the sky, needing to pass through the underworld to be renewed. Surrounding him are protective deities. Sia, the god of perception. Hu, the god of authoritative speech. Heka, the god of magic, and many others, all standing watch, all keeping Ra safe as he travels through this dangerous realm. Seeing Ra's boat is both reassuring and frightening. It reminds you that even the gods must face these dangers every night, that the Duat is a place of real peril where even divine beings must be cautious and vigilant. But it also gives you hope. If Ra can make this journey every night and emerge victorious every morning, then perhaps you too can complete the journey successfully. The second hour brings you deeper into the underworld. The river widens, and along its banks you see fields, strange crops growing in the dim light. These are the grain fields of the Duat, tended by spirits of the dead who labour here. You see groups of workers harvesting grain that seems to glow with its own faint light. These are not the damned performing punishments. These are souls who have passed into a kind of afterlife, but not yet reached paradise, working to sustain themselves and others. In time, if they continue to follow Ma'at, they may proceed further. They may reach the field of reeds. As you enter the third hour, the landscape changes dramatically. You pass through a region called Slicing Waters, where the river becomes turbulent and dangerous. The ferryman must navigate carefully, avoiding whirlpools and rapids that appear suddenly out of nowhere. The water itself seems alive, reaching up with watery hands as if trying to pull you from the boat. You hold tight and recite protective spells, surrounding yourself with words of power, creating a shield of divine speech that the waters cannot penetrate. In this region, you see the boat of Ra more clearly. The gods surrounding him are fighting, using spears and knives against serpentine forms that rise from the water, trying to attack the solar boat. These are the servants of Apophis, the great enemy, the chaos serpent who seeks to devour Ra and prevent the sun from rising. The battle is fierce, and you watch in awe and terror as divine weapons flash in the dimness, as spells are shouted that make the air itself vibrate with power. The fourth hour brings the first great terror. You enter a region of total darkness, so black that you literally cannot see anything, not your hands in front of your face, not the boat beneath you, nothing. This darkness is not just the absence of light. It is a living thing, a manifestation of the primordial chaos that existed before creation. It presses against you, heavy and oppressive, trying to smother you, to make you lose your sense of self, to dissolve you back into the undifferentiated nothingness from which all things came. You desperately recite spell 79 for being among the followers of Ra and being in his retinue. You call upon the light within you, the divine spark that makes you more than just matter, that makes you a conscious, living soul. And slowly, miraculously, light appears around you, a soft glow emanating from your own bar, from the very essence of who you are. You become one of the Aku, the shining ones, and the darkness cannot touch you. The ferryman, too, glows with his own light, and together you continue through this region of ultimate darkness. In the 5th hour, you come to a place described in the texts as the hidden land, where even stranger things occur. Here time seems to flow differently. You see things happening backward, effects preceding causes. You see the elderly becoming young, the young becoming elderly. You see water flowing uphill, fire burning downward into the earth. This region challenges your understanding of reality, tests whether you can maintain your sense of self and purpose when the normal rules of existence are suspended. You hold tight to your identity, to your name, repeating it to yourself like a mantra. I am N, son of N, justified of voice. I know who I am. I know where I am going. I seek the presence of Osiris. I will reach the field of reeds. By maintaining your sense of self, by refusing to be confused or disoriented, you pass through this region successfully. The 6th hour brings you to the lake of fire. Yes, fire, burning on the surface of water, defying natural law because this is not the natural world. You can feel the heat from a distance, intense and terrible. The flames leap high, red and orange and blue-white, and you can hear screaming from within the flames. These are the souls of the damned, those who failed the judgment, those whose hearts were heavy with evil, being purified through fire, or simply suffering the punishment they earned through their wickedness. Your boat must pass through or around this lake. The ferryman steers carefully, finding a narrow channel where the flames are lower. You recite spell 126 for not going to the place of execution. You also recite spells of protection against fire, surrounding yourself with coolness, with the waters of Nun, with the protection of the goddess Tefnut. The flames part before your boat, or perhaps you pass through them unharmed, protected by your spells and by the purity of your heart. The damned reach out to you with burning hands, crying out for help, but you cannot help them. They must endure what they earned. You must continue forward. The 7th and 8th hours bring you to the most dangerous part of the journey, the confrontation with Apophis. This region is called Place of the Serpent Apophis, or the Place of the Rebel. And here, Ra's nightly battle with chaos reaches its climax. Apophis is an enormous serpent, so large that his coils seem to fill the entire region. His scales are dark and gleaming, his eyes burn with malevolent intelligence, and his mouth is large enough to swallow the sun itself. You watch from your boat as Ra's boat approaches Apophis. The serpent rises from the depths, roaring with a sound like 1,000 storms, opening his massive jaws to devour the sun god. But Ra does not face this threat alone. The god Set, ironically the god of chaos and violence, stands at the prow of Ra's boat with a long spear. Set is the only god strong enough and fierce enough to fight Apophis. He hurls his spear into the serpent's mouth, piercing its throat. The goddess Isis chants spells that bind Apophis, that prevent him from moving freely. Other gods hack at the serpent with knives, cutting its flesh, spilling its dark blood into the waters of the Duat. Apophis writhes and thrashes, causing the river to churn, causing your own boat to rock dangerously. But you add your voice to the fight, reciting spells against Apophis, adding your power, however small, to the forces defending Ra. You shout, "Fall down, Apophis, enemy of Ra!" You will not prevent the dawn. You will not swallow the sun. Your mouth is filled with the spear of Set. Your body is cut by the knives of the gods. Fall down, Apophis. The battle seems to last forever, but it is measured in minutes, perhaps in seconds, time being strange in this place. Finally, Apophis falls back into the depths, defeated but not destroyed. He will reassemble himself and will attack again tomorrow night. This is the eternal struggle, the never-ending battle between order and chaos, Ma'at and Isfet. Every night, chaos nearly wins. Every morning, order prevails. And you have participated in this cosmic battle, have stood with the gods against the forces of dissolution. This gives you merit, makes you worthy, proves your allegiance to Ma'at. In the 9th hour, you pass through a region where the damned are punished in various ways. You see souls being beheaded by demons, their heads rolling on the ground, and yet they are not dead because they are already dead. They must endure this punishment repeatedly, forever, or until they have paid for their crimes. You see souls trapped in nets, struggling but unable to escape. You see souls being devoured by crocodiles, being burned in ovens, being tortured by demons with the heads of knives and the bodies of serpents. This is not a place you want to linger. You recite spells of protection, spells that ensure you will not be trapped here, will not be mistaken for one of the damned. You call upon your good deeds, upon the offerings your family is making in your tomb, upon the prayers being said on your behalf, and you continue forward, leaving this region of punishment behind. The 10th and 11th hours bring you closer to your destination. You can feel it now, a pulling sensation, a calling. The hall of Ma'at is near, where Osiris sits in judgment. The quality of light changes, becoming slightly brighter, less grey and more golden. You pass through regions where the blessed dead are beginning to be visible, souls who have passed the judgment and are on their way to paradise. They look peaceful, happy even, and they encourage you. Continue on. The judgment awaits. Speak truth. Your heart is light. You will pass. In these hours, you encounter gods who question you about your knowledge of divine mysteries. They ask about creation, about the nature of the Ennead, about the relationships between gods, about the structure of the cosmos. This is where spell 17 becomes essential. With all its theological knowledge, you must demonstrate understanding, must show that you are not ignorant but enlightened, not confused but aware. One god asks, "Who emerged from none at the beginning?" You answer, "Atom emerged from none, the complete one who contained all things." Another asks, "Who are the children of Atom?" You answer, "Shu and Tefnut, air and moisture, the first division of the one into many." They ask more questions, and each time you answer correctly, drawing on knowledge you gained in life, knowledge preserved in your heart and in your bar. With each correct answer, you prove your worthiness, demonstrate that you are prepared for what comes next. Finally, in the 12th hour, you approach the Hall of Two Truths, the Hall of Ma'at, where the judgment will take place. But before you can enter, there is one last obstacle. The gate to the hall is guarded by 3 beings: a doorkeeper called Who Repels the Crocodile, a guardian called Who Guards the Booth, and a herald called Who Calls the Souls. Each must be satisfied before the gate will open. You speak to the doorkeeper, reciting the words from spell 125. "O doorkeeper of this gate, I have come to you, O Lord of Ma'at. I have brought Ma'at to you. I have driven away Isfet for you. I have not done evil against people. I have not impoverished my associates. I have not done wrong in the place of truth. I have not known what should not be known. I have not done evil. I have not begun my day by receiving a report from those who work for me. My name has not reached the bark of the mighty of Mast. I have not blasphemed God. I have not robbed the poor. I have not made the beginning of every day laborious in the sight of my official in charge of my work. I have not reviled God. I have not mistreated my servants. I have not scorned God. The doorkeeper examines you, then steps aside. You speak to the guardian. I know you, and I know your name. The name of the guardian of this gate is who guards the booth. Let me pass, for I have come in righteousness, without sin, without guilt. The guardian nods. You speak to the herald. Announce me. I have come a long way, from the land of the living to the realm of the dead. I have passed through the 12 hours of the night. I have survived the dangers of the Duat. I have fought against Apophis. I have proven my knowledge. Now I seek to stand before Osiris, to have my heart weighed, to be judged according to my deeds. Announce me. The herald turns and calls out in a voice that echoes through the hall. Let this soul approach. Let N, justified of voice, enter the hall of Ma'at to be judged. The great doors swing open, revealing the hall beyond. Light pours out, golden and brilliant. You have completed the journey through the Duat. Now comes the ultimate test, the judgment itself. You step forward, passing through the gates, entering the presence of Osiris and the assembled gods. Your fate will be determined in the next moments, decided by the weight of your heart and the truth of your words. Chapter 6. The Weighing of the Heart and the Judgment of Osiris. You stand now in the Hall of Ma'at, also called the Hall of Two Truths, and this is the most important moment of your entire existence, encompassing both the life you lived and the eternal life you hope to gain. The hall is vast beyond imagining, its ceiling lost in darkness high above, yet somehow the space feels intimate, focused, as if the entire cosmos has contracted to this single point in space and time. The walls are covered in hieroglyphs that seem to glow with their own light, gold and lapis blue, spellings out the laws of Ma'at, the principles that govern all existence. At the far end of the hall, on a great throne that seems to be made of solid gold or perhaps of light itself, sits Osiris, the Lord of the dead, the first being ever to die and be resurrected, the king of the afterlife. He appears as a mummified figure, his skin green like the shoots of new grain rising from dark soil, or sometimes black like the fertile earth of the Nile Delta. His body is wrapped in white linen, and his arms are crossed over his chest, holding the crook and flail, the symbols of kingship and authority. On his head is the Atef crown, tall and magnificent, white with ostrich feathers on either side, and ram's horns curving up from the base. His face is serene, ageless, showing neither anger nor mercy, simply absolute justice. His eyes, though his body appears mummified, are fully alive, dark and penetrating, ancient beyond measure. Those eyes have seen millions of souls pass through this hall. They have witnessed every possible variation of human good and evil. They can see through any deception, can penetrate any illusion, can read the truth written in your heart. When those eyes focus on you, you feel utterly naked, completely exposed, every secret revealed, every hidden deed brought to light. There is nowhere to hide from the gaze of Osiris. Surrounding the throne of Osiris are the 42 judges of the dead, sitting in 2 rows along the walls of the hall. Each of these gods represents a nome, a district of ancient Egypt, and each oversees a particular vice or sin. Their names are both descriptive and terrifying, revealing their functions. Bone-breaker who came forth from Heracleopolis, blood-eater who came forth from the place of execution, face behind who came forth from the cave, swallower of shades, who came forth from the cavern, shining teeth, who came forth from Tashi, eater of entrails, who came forth from the house of 30. Each one stares at you with inhuman intensity, waiting to hear your confession or denial of the sin they embody. Standing near the throne are Isis and Nephthys, the sisters who protected Osiris in his death, who gathered the pieces of his body when Set had scattered them, who helped Anubis perform the first mummification. They stand in postures of protection and support, their arms raised as if sheltering Osiris, or perhaps sheltering you, the soul being judged. Their faces show compassion but also sternness. They will not allow injustice, but they hope for mercy when mercy is deserved. Nearby stands Thoth, easily recognizable by his ibis head, long curved beak black against white feathers. Thoth is the god of wisdom, writing, magic, and justice. In his hands he holds his scribal palette, reed pen poised over papyrus, ready to record the results of your judgment. Thoth is perfectly neutral, interested only in truth and accuracy. He will record exactly what happens, neither adding nor subtracting anything, creating an eternal record that cannot be altered or disputed. And most prominently, in the very centre of the hall, standing beside a great set of scales, is Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming, the guardian of the dead, the guide of souls through the underworld. His black jackal head gleams in the light of the hall, his ears alert, his eyes watchful. He wears the white kilt of a priest, and around his neck is a golden collar. In his hands he holds the instruments of judgment, preparing to weigh your heart against the feather of Ma'at. This is his most important duty, the role for which he was born, to ensure the judgment is fair, accurate, and final. The scales themselves are magnificent. Tall as a man, made of gold or bronze that gleams like sunlight, they stand perfectly balanced on a central pillar. The beam of the scale is horizontal, with pans hanging from either end by golden chains. On one side of the scale sits a feather, a single ostrich feather, white and perfect, representing Ma'at herself, representing truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. This feather appears weightless, barely bending the scale pan, yet it represents the weight of all righteousness, all truth, all order in the universe. On the other side, the pan is empty, waiting for your heart. Crouched beneath the scales, directly below the balance point, is the most terrifying being in the hall. Her name is Ammit, the Devourer, and she is a composite creature combining the three most dangerous animals known to the Egyptians. She has the head of a crocodile, massive jaws filled with teeth like knives, the forepart of a lion, powerful and fierce, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, huge and deadly. She waits there patiently, her yellow eyes fixed on the scales, her jaws slightly open, ready. If your heart is heavy, if you fail the judgment, Ammit will devour your heart, and you will suffer the second death, complete annihilation, ceasing to exist in any form whatsoever. This is the fate worse than death, the ultimate horror, the end of all existence. Now the judgment begins. Anubis gestures for you to approach the scales. You walk forward on legs that feel weak, your bar trembling with fear and hope. You notice that your heart has been removed from your chest. It hovers before you, visible and solid, pulsing with its own dim light, containing the complete record of your life. Every deed you performed, every word you spoke, every thought you had, all of it is written in your heart. Your heart knows the complete truth of who you were, what you did, how you lived, and your heart cannot lie. Before the weighing can proceed, you must make the negative confession. You must address each of the 42 judges and deny having committed the sin they represent. This is not a formality. This is a solemn declaration before the gods, witnessed by all of heaven, recorded by Thoth for eternity. Any lie will be immediately apparent, will make your heart heavier, will doom you. You begin, your voice shaking at first, but growing stronger as you continue. You address each judge in turn. O wide strider who came forth from Heliopolis, I have not done wrong. O flame embracer who came forth from Kerahar, I have not stolen. O nosy who came forth from Hermopolis, I have not killed people. O swallower of shades who came forth from the cavern, I have not stolen food offerings. O dangerous one who came forth from Roset Jow, I have not told lies. O flame who came forth in going back, I have not carried off food. O bone breaker who came forth from Heracleopolis, I have not spoken evilly. O green of flame who came forth from Memphis, I have not committed adultery with a man's wife. O pupil who came forth from Chem, I have not defiled myself. O commander of people who came forth from your house, I have not caused terror. O wrecker who came forth from Sighs, I have not transgressed. O mischief maker who came forth from the sanctuary, I have not been hot-tempered. O youth who came forth from Heliopolis, I have not been deaf to words of truth. O foreteller who came forth from Wenis, I have not made disturbance. O Bastet who came forth from the shrine, I have not been violent. As you continue through the list, addressing all 42 judges, your voice grows more confident. You are speaking truth. You are not perfect in life, no one is, but you tried to follow Ma'at. You tried to be honest, to be kind, to respect the gods and other people. You made mistakes, yes, but they were errors of weakness or ignorance, not deliberate wickedness. Your heart, hearing your words, responds with agreement. You can feel it becoming lighter as you speak, releasing the guilt of minor transgressions, holding fast to the truth of your essential goodness. O strider backwards who came forth from Bubastis, I have not slain sacred bulls. O eater of entrails who came forth from the house of 30, I have not committed perjury. O Lord of truth who came forth from Marti, I have not stolen grain. O wanderer who came forth from Bubastis, I have not gossiped. O pale one who came forth from Heliopolis, I have not made anyone cry. O doubly evil who came forth from Anjet, I have not had homosexual relations. O empty snake who came forth from the place of judgment, I have not consorted with someone's wife. O seer of what he brings who came forth from the house of Min, I have not caused anyone suffering. O you of the altar who came forth from the secret place, I have not diminished food offerings in the temples. O master of faces who came forth from Nejafet, I have not reduced the bread offerings. O pilot who came forth from Weret, I have not stolen from the loaves of the gods. O disturber who came forth from the house of Osiris, I have not stolen cakes from the dead. O serpent whose face is behind who came forth from the cavern, I have not copulated with a boy. O fiery foot who came forth at night, I have not been neglectful. O dark one who came forth at night, I have not been quarrelsome. O bringer of your offering who came forth from Sais, I have not winked. O owner of horns who came forth from Siut, I have not copulated excessively. O Nephatem who came forth from Memphis, I have not been violent or insolent. O Temsep who came forth from Busiris, I have not been impatient. O acting with your heart who came forth from Tebu, I have not exceeded the limits. O dark one who came forth from darkness, I have not exalted my speech. O bringer of gifts who came forth from Sais, I have not multiplied words in speaking. O serpent Neheb-Nephert who came forth from the lake, I have not acted with deceit, I have not spoken evil. O Neheb-Cow who came forth from your cavern, I have not cursed the king. O head of the lake who came forth from Nedjet, I have not made confusion in water. O flowing one who came forth from Nun, I have not raised my voice excessively. O orderer of people who came forth from your house of the sceptre, I have not blasphemed against God. O child who came forth from the pool of the Heliopolitan gnome, I have not acted arrogantly. O elder heron who came forth from the Duat, I have not made unjust distinctions between people. O record keeper of the Matt Reed who came forth from the recording office, I have not increased my wealth except through my own legitimate possessions. O bearer of the knife who came forth from the place of execution, I have not blasphemed against the God of my city. You complete the list. Having addressed all 42 judges, having denied all the sins they represent, the hall is silent, waiting. The gods are watching, evaluating, judging not just your words but the truth behind them. Your heart hovers in the air, and you can see it clearly now. It glows with a soft light, and you realize with relief and joy that it appears too light, not weightless, but not heavy either. The prayers of your family, the offerings at your tomb, the good deeds you performed in life, all of these have kept your heart from being weighed down with guilt and evil. Now you make a second declaration, this time speaking directly to the gods collectively rather than individually. Hail to you, gods. I know you, and I know your names. I will not fall to your knives. You will not bring my wickedness to the attention of this God, in whose following you are. No fault of mine will proceed from you. You will speak ma'at concerning me in the presence of the universal Lord, because I have done ma'at in Egypt. I have not cursed God. No fault of mine has proceeded from a king who was in his day. Hail to you who are in the hall of ma'at, who have no lies in your bodies, who live on ma'at, and who gulp down ma'at in the presence of Horus, who is in his disk. Rescue me from Babai, who lives on the entrails of elders on that day of the great reckoning. You continue, see, I have come to you without sin, without guilt, without evil, without a witness against me, without one against whom I have taken action. I live on Ma'at. I gulp down Ma'at. I have done what people say and what gods are pleased with. I have satisfied God with what he desires. I have given bread to the hungry, water to the thirsty, clothes to the naked, and a ferryboat to the boatless. I have given divine offerings to the gods, and mortuary offerings to the dead. So rescue me, protect me, and do not make report against me in the presence of the great God. This second declaration is crucial because it adds positive claims to your negative denials. You are not just saying what you didn't do wrong, you are asserting what you did right. You fed the hungry, gave water to the thirsty, clothed the naked, helped the helpless. These acts of charity and kindness are recorded in your heart just as surely as any misdeeds would have been. They add weight to your virtue, lighten the burden of your faults. The 42 judges confer among themselves, their voices like wind through reeds, speaking in languages that predate human speech. Then, one by one, they nod. You have satisfied them. Your denials are true, your positive claims are accurate, your heart is suitable for judgment. Now comes the moment of ultimate truth. Anubis carefully reaches out and takes your heart. His touch is surprisingly gentle, reverent even. He places your heart on the empty pan of the scales, positioning it carefully in the center. Your heart settles onto the pan, and immediately the scales begin to move. The pan holding your heart descends slightly. The pan holding the feather rises. For a terrible moment, you think you have failed, that your heart is heavy, that Amit will devour you. Everyone in the hall watches in absolute silence. Osiris leans forward slightly on his throne. Isis and Nephthys hold their breaths. The 42 judges stop their murmuring. Thoth raises his pen, ready to record the verdict. Amit tenses, ready to spring forward and devour your heart if it proves too heavy. But then the scales stabilize. The pan holding your heart stops descending. The pan holding the feather stops rising. They hover there for a long moment, and then, miracle of miracles, they balance. Perfect balance. Your heart weighs exactly the same as the feather of Ma'at, no more and no less. You have spoken truth. You have lived according to Ma'at. Your heart is pure. Your conscience is clear. Your life has been good enough, righteous enough, to earn eternal life. Anubis checks the scales carefully, adjusting the beam slightly, making absolutely certain of the result. He examines the balance from different angles, using his divine vision to see beyond the physical into the spiritual truth of the weighing. Finally, he nods, satisfied. He turns to Thoth and makes his report. His heart has been weighed. His bar has stood as a witness for him. His case is true upon the great scale. No sin has been found in him. He has not diminished the offerings in the temples. He has not done harm in the course of his life. Thoth carefully writes this verdict on his papyrus, his reed pen moving in precise, practiced strokes. The record is permanent, eternal, cannot be altered or disputed. He reads aloud what he has written, his voice clear and authoritative. Heard. He is assessed. The plummet is in the place of truth. He is found true and righteous. No sin is found in him. His heart has come forth upon the scale. His innocence is firmly established. He has been granted allowance to go before Osiris. He has been justified to live eternally. Ammit, disappointed but accepting, slinks back beneath the scales to wait for the next soul. The 42 judges make gestures of approval, satisfied that justice has been done. Isis and Nephthys smile, pleased that another soul has been saved, that Ma'at has triumphed again. Horus, the falcon-headed son of Osiris, steps forward. He is tall and regal, wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, carrying the Was scepter of power and dominion. He approaches you and takes your hand in his grip firm and reassuring. He speaks to you kindly. You have done well. You have proven yourself worthy. Come now, and I will present you to my father. Horus leads you before the throne of Osiris. You kneel, overwhelmed by the presence of the god, by the magnitude of what is happening. You have passed the judgment. You have been declared righteous. You are going to live forever. Osiris speaks, and his voice is deep and resonant, carrying the weight of ages, the authority of the first king, the wisdom of the Lord of eternity. N, justified of voice, you have passed through death and emerged victorious. You have navigated the Duat and survived its dangers. You have stood before the 42 judges and proven your innocence. Your heart has been weighed and found true. You are justified. You are vindicated. You are now Osiris N, sharing in my resurrection, sharing in my eternal life. Rise now and proceed to the field of reeds, where you will live forever among the blessed dead, young and strong, happy and free, feasting and celebrating, working and resting, for all eternity. Go now with my blessing. Osiris extends his hand, and you see that he holds an ankh, the symbol of eternal life. He touches the ankh to your forehead, and you feel power flowing into you, divine energy transforming you, completing your transformation into an Ak, a glorified spirit, an immortal being. All the parts of your soul, Ka and Ba and Ib and Ren and Shot, all come together in a new configuration, perfectly balanced, perfectly integrated, perfected and eternal. You rise to your feet, no longer afraid, no longer uncertain. You have been judged and found worthy. You are justified. Your name is now written in the eternal records kept by Thoth. You are now Osiris N, justified of voice, true of speech. You have achieved what you sought, what your family prayed for, what all the rituals and spells and offerings were designed to accomplish. You have overcome death and gained eternal life. Horus leads you to another door at the far end of the Hall of Ma'at. This door opens onto a landscape of beauty beyond imagining, flooded with golden light, green with vegetation, alive with the sound of water and birds and human laughter. This is the entrance to the field of reeds, to paradise, to your eternal home. Enter and live forever, Horus says, releasing your hand. You step through the door, leaving the hall of judgment behind, entering into eternal happiness. Behind you, the next soul is being brought forward for judgment. The process continues, day after day, night after night, soul after soul, each one judged fairly and accurately, each one receiving exactly what they deserve based on how they lived. This is Ma'at. This is justice. This is the eternal order that governs all existence. Chapter 7. Paradise at last, the field of reeds. You have passed the judgment. Your heart was as light as the feather of Ma'at. You have been declared justified, innocent, pure, worthy. Osiris himself has blessed you and granted you permission to proceed to paradise. Now, finally, after all the trials, all the dangers, all the fear and pain of death, and the journey through the Duat and the terror of judgment, you arrive at your true destination. The place the Egyptians called Sekhet Aru, the field of reeds, also known as Sekhet Hetep, the field of peace, or simply Aru, the paradise that has been promised since the beginning of time. What is this place? How did the Egyptians imagine paradise? Let me paint you a picture in detail, and as I describe it, let yourself feel the relief and overwhelming joy that the ancient Egyptians must have felt when they contemplated this beautiful vision of eternal happiness. The field of reeds is located in the east, where the sun rises each morning, in the direction of rebirth, renewal, light emerging from darkness. This placement is not arbitrary. The east is where Ra is reborn every dawn after his nightly journey through the Duat. The east is where life begins anew. By placing paradise in the east, the Egyptians ensured it would be associated with hope, with new beginnings, with the eternal return of light and life. The entire region is surrounded by an iron wall, strong and impenetrable, protecting it from all the dangers and chaos of the outer Duat. This wall is not a prison, it is a boundary, a sacred enclosure that keeps the blessed dead safe from anything that might harm them. The only way to enter is through gates, and these gates are guarded by divine beings. But now that you have been justified by Osiris, now that you bear the seal of righteousness, the gates open for you readily. You are welcomed as one of the blessed dead, as someone who has earned their place here through virtue and proper preparation. As you pass through the gates and enter the field of reeds, the first thing that strikes you is the light. After the darkness of the tomb, after the grey twilight of the Duat, after the solemn half-light of the Hall of Judgment, the light in the field of reeds is stunning, brilliant, warm, perfect. It is eternal daylight here, or perhaps more accurately, eternal morning, when the air is fresh and cool and the sun is gentle rather than harsh. There is no blazing noon heat, no darkness of night to bring fear or discomfort. The light is perfect, illuminating everything, casting no frightening shadows, making every colour vivid and beautiful. The landscape before you is breathtaking, and you immediately recognize it. It is Egypt, but it is Egypt perfected, Egypt as it always should have been, Egypt without the hardships and dangers that made mortal life so difficult. The Nile flows through the centre of the field, but this Nile is wider than the earthly river, clearer, more beautiful. Its waters are sweet and pure, the deepest blue-green you have ever seen. The banks of the river are lined with tall green reeds swaying in a gentle breeze, the reeds that give this place its name. The sound they make as they rustle together is like music, like thousands of tiny bells ringing in harmony.